Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. Jaded Blossom has a fun mini release called April Showers. There's a new Gnome add-on set, a great sentiment set with outline dies, and a card mat die. So let me show you everything that's included in the mini release. I'll start with the Gnome add-on set. This one's called Weather. This is one of my favorite Gnome add-on sets that they've released. There's an umbrella, a rain hat. I love the little rain boots. Plus there's a sun, a cloud, and a little smiley face. The sentiment set is called Rainy Days. Lots of really fun sentiments that work with the Weather add-on set. And they also have the coordinating outline dies. I love having the dies to use with the sentiments. The final item in the mini release is called Diagonal Card Mat Die. It's slightly smaller than an A2 size card, and I think this will be great for finishing off some pattern paper scraps. I do have a few cards to share with you using the items from the mini release. For pattern paper, I couldn't decide on just one collection, so I am using 6 different paper collections. 3 of them are from Sunny Studio. 1 is from Lawn Fawn. This is their All the Dots collection. I also have a collection from Alta New, beautiful watercolor backgrounds. And one of the cards will be featuring Honeybee Stamp's Grain and Grunge collection. So let's go ahead and get started with card design number 1. I used the new diagonal card mat die with 3 different pattern papers from Sunny Studio. It's springtime, so I decided to use some pretty pastels. All 3 of the pattern papers are from Sunny Studio's Flirty Flowers collection. I'm using the greenish teal color for the frame, and I have a pretty pink and purple for the other 2 colors. I put glue on the back of the frame and adhered it onto some white shimmer cardstock. Now I'll fill in all 5 of the pieces with the pattern paper. Sometimes when I use this type of cover plate die, I like to put double-sided adhesive tape on the back. But since 3 of the openings are fairly large, I found it easier to simply glue down the frame than add each of the individual pieces. I started with the largest piece in the center, added the 2 purple pieces, then finally finishing off with the 2 smaller pink pieces. Once I have all of those pieces adhered, I'll put ATG tape on the back and add my card front onto a card base. All of my cards in this video are American Standard A2 size, 4 1/4 inches by 5 1/2 inches. For an image on the card, I used Jaded Blossom's Tulips set, and I've already stamped and cut out all of the different pieces. I do have a video where I show how to use this beautiful stamp set. And I'll add a link at the end of this video if you want to check it out. The ink colors I'm using are In the Park, Mint to Be, and Sparkling Berry. These are all from Catherine Pooler. I stamped out 2 of the tulips and 3 leaves. I'll glue down the first tulip more on the left side and 1 of the longer leaves. Then I'll add a second tulip, and I did put foam dimension underneath the blossom. Then I'll add the final 2 leaves, and I did add foam dimension just on the very tip of each of those leaves. For a sentiment, I'm using the word hello, and this is from Jaded Blossom's Happy Hello add-on set number 2. I used the stamp and the coordinating die. I'm always a fan of using general sentiments. I have foam dimension just on the very right and left side of the sentiment, since the very center of the word will be sitting on top of the leaves and the flower stems. For embellishments, I'm adding some of Honeybee Stamp's Crystal Glimmer enamel stickers. Put 2 in the upper left-hand corner and 3 to the right of the sentiment. For a final finishing touch, I'm using a white gel pen and adding some highlights to the blossoms and the leaves. So there is my finished card, and I did end up making a total of 3. Since I used 3 different pattern papers, I had to cut out all of those pieces, so I figured I might as well make 3 cards. Now moving on to card design number 2. The pattern paper is from Lawn Fawn's All the Dots. I used the diagonal stripe for the main piece and the polka dots for the bottom. I think the diagonal stripes really look like rain. Here in Western Washington, we've experienced many rainy days where the rain is coming at you at an angle. I did add a Love from Lizzie peel off above the polka dot paper. This is the turquoise holographic color in the pinstripe style. I layered the background piece on a Scallop Rectangle die, and this is from Jaded Blossom. Put my card front onto a card base. Now it's time to assemble one of the gnomes. My card will be featuring a girl gnome. I cut out the background piece from some white cardstock, and all of that will be covered up, and most of it I'll actually be cutting off as well. Before attaching her dress, I did cut off the little foot stubs since she'll be wearing the boots with the new legs. Then after attaching the dress, I can add her face, and I will have just part of it going off the very top of the dress. On the background, it also has the area for the hat. She'll be wearing the new rain hat, and it doesn't match up, so it's easier to just trim that piece off. Before attaching the new legs, I do need to assemble the boots. For the very background piece of the boot, I did cut it out from some pink cardstock, but you can use any color since it will be covered up. It's basically a guide for adding all of the other pieces to the boot. For the main color of her boots, I'm using some pink pearlescent cardstock. I have a gray color for the soles of her boots. And the little label piece, I use some white cardstock. So once I've adhered both of the boots, I'll put glue on the back of her skirt and attach my little gnome on top of the legs. And I used a skin tone cardstock color for her legs. You could use something different and make it look like she's wearing pants or tights. So she'll be sitting on the ground doing the splits wearing her cute pink rain boots. Now I'll start working on her rain hat. I'm using the same pink colors. One side has a pearlescent finish and the other is just matte. I used the pearlescent side for the very top of her hat and the matte side for the rest of the hat. Now this is a very large rain hat compared to the little gnome. I found the easiest way to attach the hat is to wait to add that final brim piece. You want to put glue on the back of the gnome and adhere that piece onto the back of the hat. Then you can finally add the little brim piece. That way it looks like it's actually sitting on top of their head. This little gnome will have blonde pigtails with pink sparkly bows. Reminds me of my daughter when she was younger. I have many pictures of her standing outside, stomping in a puddle, wearing her rain boots and raincoat. Once I have my gnome all assembled, I'll put foam dimension on the back and adhere her to the front of the card, more toward the bottom where she's sitting on top of the blue and white polka dot paper. I'll remove the release paper, and I'm leaving a large area toward the top of the card so I can add some other elements. I've already assembled the umbrella. I used some yellow tone-on-tone polka dot paper, some silver mirror paper for the handle of the umbrella, and I've already attached her hands. I'll put foam dimension just behind the top portion of the umbrella and glue on the back side of the handle. So now my little girl gnome is holding a yellow umbrella. Next I'll add a couple of clouds, and I cut these out from some silver pearlescent cardstock. I'll put one in the upper left-hand corner and one to the right of the umbrella. I did trim off the very left side of one of the clouds so I could tuck it underneath the umbrella. I've already stamped and cut out the sentiment, "Rain or shine, I'm here for you, Gnome." Using the outline die, I also cut out a piece from some blue cardstock, and I'll adhere those together, creating a drop shadow of the blue cardstock underneath the sentiment. We'll put foam dimension on the back and adhere the sentiment in the upper right-hand corner. For a little extra detail on her rain boots, I'm adding a teeny tiny pink gem sticker from Spellbinders. For other embellishments, I'm using some blue gem stickers from Honeybee Stamps, putting a few on the clouds and 2 to the right of the little girl gnome. Then for a final finishing touch, I'll use a white gel pen and add some highlights to the umbrella, the gnome, and her dress. I pulled out a scrap piece of cardstock just to get the white gel pen flowing. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. There are so many fun new images on the new Gnome Weather add-on set. The umbrella is adorable, the rain hat, but I especially like the rain boots. Now moving on to card design number 3. I used the diagonal card mat die and some Alta New pattern paper. Now instead of doing different pieces for all the triangles, well, they're not quite triangles, but close to triangles, I used the same sheet of pattern paper, and I'm holding all of that together with some double-sided adhesive tape on the back. I'll remove the release paper, layer this piece on some dark blue cardstock, then again on some coral colored cardstock. Put my card front onto a card base. This card will feature another girl gnome, and I have most of her already assembled. Now instead of her sitting doing the splits, I'm cutting the legs in half so now she can stand up. I place both of the legs on my craft mat to try to get them even. And I put some double-sided tape on the back of her dress, then placed her on top of the legs. Now I'll put foam dimension on the back of my little girl gnome and adhere her to a stitched oval die cut that I cut out from some vellum. The background paper is so pretty, I don't want to cover it up completely, so using vellum instead of white, you'll still be able to see some of that beautiful pattern. I'll attach the gnome to the vellum oval first, then I'll flip it over, put glue on the back side just in the areas where the gnome is. And I will have part of the oval going off the edge of the card. After I've attached this piece to my card, I'll flip over the card, use my scissors, and trim off the overhang. I've already stamped and cut out the sentiment. Can't have a rainbow without a little rain. Using the outline die, I cut out a second piece from some holographic cardstock. I adhere the two together so now you have that beautiful holographic shine underneath the sentiment. I have foam dimension on the back, and I'll adhere the sentiment in the upper left-hand corner. My gnome will be holding a small rainbow, and I used the same Alta Nu paper pad for the different colors of the rainbow. The rainbow die is from Jaded Blossom's St. Patrick's Day Gnome add-on set. Next to my gnome, I'll have a few yellow tulips, and I cut these out from the same Alta Nu watercolor paper. The tulip dies are from the Easter add-on set number 2. This is another gnome add-on set. Even if you're not a gnome fan, Jaded Blossom's gnome add-on sets have plenty of images that you can use without the gnomes. My last two cards in this video feature images from the gnome add-on sets, but no gnomes. After adding the 3 yellow tulips in the lower left-hand corner, I'll finish off the card with some beautiful iridescent gem stickers. And these are from Honeybee Stamps. I believe it's a retired set. I'm really working on finishing up some of my older bling packs. I'll use a white gel pen to add a few highlights to my gnome and also the tulips. Then for a final finishing touch, I thought it would be fun to have a sparkly rainbow. I'm covering the entire rainbow with Nouveau glitter drops. This is the White Blizzard color. Once that dries, it'll have this beautiful sparkle finish. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. I used some of Sunny Studio's pattern paper for her hat and also her boots. Now moving on to card design number 4. I have 2 different pattern papers from Sunny Studio, and I'm creating a little scene. I'm using the blue gingham for the very background, and I have a small piece of the larger green gingham for a grassy hill. And the die I used for the hill is from Jaded Blossom's Mushroom die set. I'll add both of those onto some white shimmer cardstock, add my card front onto a card base. This card will be featuring the umbrella. I cut out the background of the umbrella from some white cardstock. Then for the segments of the umbrella, I have the yellow tone-on-tone polka dot and a white with colorful flowers. And all of the pattern paper I'm using on this card is by Sunny Studio. I'll adhere all 4 of those pieces down. For the handle of the umbrella, I cut this out from some silver mirror cardstock. But I won't be adding the handle of the umbrella yet. I'm putting some double-sided adhesive tape on the back of the umbrella, and I'll be filling it up with pink tulips. If you haven't noticed yet, I love tulips. Pink tulips are my favorite, but I love them all. Hopefully soon I'll be heading to the Skagit Valley area here in Western Washington to see the beautiful tulip fields. I try to go every single year. I have 7 tulips. I'm putting 3 in the front row and 4 in the back. After I've attached the front 3, I'll add the 4 in the back, putting them slightly higher. I'll keep adding some double-sided tape on the back side. Just want to make sure everything is staying in place. Then I'll add the handle of the umbrella. And I am putting it up slightly higher than it's designed. I still want the very tip to show, so I did cut out a second piece and I'll adhere that to the very top of the umbrella. Although in this card, it's more the bottom of the umbrella, since I will have it upside down on the card. I put some foam dimension on the bottom of the umbrella and glue on the back of the handle. I'll also add some foam dimension behind the front row of tulips. Next, I'll adhere the sun and a couple of clouds, and these are dies included on the weather add-on set. I'll put the sun in the upper left-hand corner, and it'll go off the edge just slightly. I'll flip over my card to trim off the extra. I'll put some foam dimension on the back of one of the clouds and adhere it on top of the sun. And for the area that goes off the edge of the card, I'll simply trim that off. I'll put the final cloud in the upper right-hand corner. I did cut out a third cloud, and I was going to adhere it in front of the cloud on the left side, but there wasn't enough space, so I decided just to have the 2 clouds on this card. For a sentiment, I'm adding Get Well Soon, and this is from Jaded Blossom's Speedy Recovery stamp set. I stamped it on a stitch banner die cut, and this is from Jaded Blossom's Mini Tag die set number 2. And I'll adhere it on top of the umbrella on the left side. I will put a small piece of foam dimension on the very left side where it goes off of the umbrella. For a little extra detail, I'm adding an assortment of Doodlebug Designs shape sprinkles. I have some mushrooms, some small flowers, a little patch of grass, and some little green polka dots. I'll also add some of the heart-shaped sprinkles to each of the clouds. I have so many partially used sets of shape sprinkles. This is another embellishment I'm really trying to finish off this year. Not that that will stop me from purchasing new sets. For a final finishing touch, I'll use a white gel pen and add a few highlights to the sun, the tulips, and the umbrella. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2 using this design. I love the bright and cheerful colors on this card, and who wouldn't want an umbrella full of beautiful pink tulips? Now moving on to card design number 5. The pattern paper for this card is from Honeybee Stamp's Grain and Grunge collection. I have a white wood grain for the very background, and I also cut some narrow strips from some brown wood grain pattern paper. I put some double-sided adhesive tape on the back side of those narrow strips, and using the lines on my craft mat, I'll add those 3 narrow strips on my card. The grid lines on my craft mat really help to get things nice and straight. I did cut those strips just slightly wider than my card, so I'll flip it over and trim off the extra. I'll put ATG tape on the back and add my card front onto a card base. My idea for the background was to create the inside of a closet with 3 shelves, and I'll fill it up with lots of colorful rain boots. I've already assembled 6 pairs of boots. 3 of them are polka dot, and the other 3 have a tone-on-tone floral pattern. I used more pattern paper from Sunny Studio for all of the boots. Now I'll start adding the boots to the shelves. I'll put 2 pair on each shelf. And while adhering them, I'm putting a polka dot and a floral pair on each shelf and alternating them as I work my way up. And just for a little extra interest, I'm adhering the boots slightly different on each of the shelves. Other than alternating the polka dots and flowers, I'm not really following any color pattern as I'm adding the boots to the shelves. Since I am overlapping some of the boots, you'll see me press down on them again, just trying to get that glue to adhere. Once it dries, those boots aren't coming up at all. The green boots are the only pair that aren't overlapping each other. Once I've adhered the last pair of boots, I'll add the sentiment, and I've already stamped and cut this out. Rainy days are better with you. And I did add a holographic drop shadow underneath the sentiment. I'll adhere it in the lower right-hand corner above the orange pair of boots. Next, I'll use a white gel pen and add some highlights to the boots and also the shelves, putting 3 small dots on either end of the shelf and just a tiny highlight on each of the boots. For a final finishing touch, I'm using more shape sprinkles, this time just hearts. I'll add 3 hearts above the pink pair of boots and 2 in the upper left-hand corner. So there is my finished card, and again, I did make 2 using this design. I love this card, so bright and cheerful. My house still has a closet full of rain boots. They're just not quite as colorful. I will be pulling out those rain boots when I head to the tulip fields, since it has been raining quite a bit and the fields get super muddy. Now here's another look at the 11 cards I made using Jaded Blossom's brand new April Showers release. This may be a mini release, but it is packed full of fun products. If you are interested in any of the products I used in this video, I do have links provided in the description box below. Jaded Blossom always has fantastic releases, and this one doesn't disappoint. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.